The forest was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes a man feel he is not alone. Ethan, a simple human traveler, walked carefully along the broken trail, his boots pressing into soft mud, the air around him heavy with the smell of damp earth. He had been searching for firewood, just something to keep his camp warm through the night. But fate had something else waiting for him, something that would change his life forever. As he bent down to pick up a dry branch, a faint sound reached his ears, a weak cry, almost like the whimper of a small animal. At first, he thought it was just the wind brushing through the trees, but then it came again, sharper, desperate. Ethan froze, his heart thudding inside his chest, curiosity and caution pulling him in two directions. He turned slowly, following the sound. Pushing past the thick bushes there, lying under a fallen log, was a creature he had never seen before. It looked like a wounded animal, its fur dark and wet with blood, its breathing shallow, eyes half closed as if life itself was slipping away. Ethan's first thought was simple. It needs help. But then his mind argued back. What if it's dangerous? What if it attacks the moment I get close still? The sound of its weak cry tore at his chest. It was not the growl of a beast. It was the cry of something fragile, something in pain. He crouched closer, the creature flinching at his shadow. Its eyes opened wider, and for a brief second, Ethan felt something strange. The eyes were not like an animal's, they glowed faintly, almost like they were hiding a secret. He shivered, but he could not step back. Instead, he whispered softly, "Easy now. I won't hurt you." The creature blinked. As if it understood his words, Ethan swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he reached for his bag, pulling out a small cloth and water flask. He cleaned the wound carefully, every movement slow, gentle. The blood was sticky, the wound deep. Yet the creature did not fight him. It only watched, those glowing eyes locked on his face. Hours passed slowly, the forest turning darker, shadows stretching across the trees. Ethan built a small fire nearby, enough to keep away the cold. The creature lay curled near the warmth, breathing uneven but still alive. Ethan sat close, staring at it, questions burning inside him. "What are you?" he whispered under his breath. It twitched almost like it heard him for a moment. The firelight reflected on its skin, and Ethan noticed something. Beneath the fur there seemed to be markings, faint lines glowing softly, like silver patterns hidden under the surface. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it was just a trick of the fire. The night grew colder, yet Ethan did not move. Every time he thought of leaving the creature, the sound of its earlier cries came back to his ears. It felt wrong to walk away, wrong to let something suffer alone, so he stayed, wrapping his own cloak around the weak body, whispering, "You'll be fine, I promise," but deep inside, Ethan knew this was no ordinary animal. The way it looked at him, the strange glow in its markings, the quiet intelligence in its gaze, it was all too unusual. And though fear curled inside his chest, another feeling grew stronger. Responsibility. This creature had no one else, and somehow it had chosen him. The forest around them stirred, a branch snapping in the distance. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. Was someone else out there watching, hunting? The creature let out a low sound, not of pain this time, but of warning. Ethan gripped the stick beside the fire, ready to defend, though his heart raced wildly. Minutes passed. Silence returned, but Ethan knew something had changed. Saving this creature was not a simple act of kindness. It was the beginning of something bigger, something dangerous. He looked at the glowing eyes once more, whispering softly, "Who are you, really?" The creature did not answer, but its gaze lingered on him, calm yet filled with hidden meaning. The fire crackled between them, the night deepened, and Ethan felt the weight of destiny pressing down on his shoulders. He thought he had rescued a hurt animal, but in truth, he had just stepped into a mystery that would change everything. The night slowly faded into dawn, pale light cutting through the heavy branches above. Ethan sat by the dying fire, his eyes heavy but awake, every crackle of the flames reminding him of the strange creature lying beside him. He had spent the whole night guarding it, feeding the fire, listening to its weak breaths, waiting for any sign of change. When the first rays of sunlight touched the ground, Ethan leaned closer. The wound he had cleaned looked different now. The blood had dried, but the flesh around it was strange. Instead of swollen skin, faint silver threads glowed across the wound, weaving together like tiny strands of light. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "That's not possible," he muttered. He touched the wound carefully, expecting pain or resistance. But the creature did not flinch, it only blinked slowly, its glowing eyes following him, calm yet unreadable for the first time. Ethan noticed its breathing was no longer shallow. Its chest rose with quiet strength, steady and sure, as if it had healed faster than any animal should. Ethan leaned back, his mind racing. No normal beast heals like that. No normal beast looks at me like that, he whispered. The creature made a soft sound, low and almost melodic. It wasn't a growl, not a whimper. Something else entirely, something closer to a word. Ethan froze, staring at its mouth. Did you just, he began but stopped. The creature closed its eyes again as if too weak to continue, but the sound lingered in his ears. Haunting. A sound too close to speech to ignore. Hours passed, the day growing brighter. Ethan decided to bring water from the stream nearby. When he returned, he saw something that made his hands go cold. The creature was no longer lying helpless, it was standing, shaky but upright. Near the edge of the fire, its shape seemed different. Taller, its fur thinner. Ethan's eyes widened as he realized he wasn't looking at the same broken animal anymore. The figure was shifting, its body wrapped in faint light. He stumbled back, heart racing. What in the world? The glow faded, leaving behind something he could not explain. The creature now looked more human than beast. A fragile figure draped in ragged cloth that had not been there before. Long hair fell across its face, silver strands catching the firelight. Its eyes, the same glowing eyes, stared at him. But now they belonged to a woman. Ethan's mouth went dry. He struggled for words. You're not an animal, he whispered, his voice shaking. The figure wavered, nearly collapsing, but caught itself, her voice breaking through, soft but clear. Please, don't be afraid. Ethan's legs refused to move. His body torn between running and helping. The woman staggered toward the fire, her steps weak, her arms trembling. He finally rushed forward, catching her before she fell. Her weight was light, fragile, like carrying someone made of air and bone. Up close, Ethan saw her face, pale, almost glowing, with strange patterns along her skin that pulsed faintly with silver light. She wasn't human, not by any measure, yet she wasn't a beast either. Something in between, something extraordinary. You saved me, she whispered, her voice raw. Filled with both fear and gratitude, Ethan swallowed hard, his mind spinning. He had only wanted to save a wounded creature, and now he was holding someone who looked like a princess from another world. He laid her gently beside the fire again, covering her with his cloak. What are you? He asked, his tone caught between wonder and suspicion. She looked at him, her eyes wet with exhaustion, but also shining with trust. I cannot tell you. Not yet, she breathed. If they find me, I will die. Her words chilled Ethan to the bone. Who was chasing her? And why was she hiding in the form of an animal? Ethan tried to steady his voice. Who is after you? But she shook her head, trembling. Please, just keep me safe for now. Her hand reached out, brushing weakly against his, her touch warm yet strangely electric. Ethan's heart pounded, and though he didn't understand any of this, something inside told him she was speaking the truth. The forest around them rustled, birds scattering into the air. Ethan looked up, his senses sharp. Danger felt closer now. She must have felt it too, because her glowing eyes widened, her lips trembling. They're coming, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan's jaw tightened, his instincts roaring inside him. He had stumbled into something far greater than himself, but now, he knew one thing for sure. Walking away was no longer an option. The hurt animal he had saved was no animal at all, but a hidden princess. And with her secret came a storm he could no longer avoid. The fire hissed as the wind picked up, the shadows deepened, and the silence of the forest felt like the calm before a battle. Ethan gripped the cloak tighter around her, whispering, You're safe with me, whoever you are. But deep down he feared those words were a promise he might never be able to keep. The fire burned low, throwing shadows that danced across the forest floor. Ethan sat close, his back stiff, his eyes never leaving the strange woman who had once been a wounded creature. Every breath she took, every faint shimmer across her skin, reminded him that this was no dream, no trick of the light. He had seen her change with his own eyes from a broken animal into something human, something alien. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of flames. Finally she stirred, her voice fragile yet steady. You should not have helped me, she whispered, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Ethan frowned, leaning forward. Why not? You would have died out there. Her lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. And maybe that would have been safer, for you. Her words sent a chill through him. What do you mean? He asked carefully. She looked at him, her gaze heavy with secrets. Because now, you are part of my fate. Ethan's heart pounded. But he forced his voice calm. Then tell me the truth. What are you? For a long time, she said nothing, as though fighting with herself. Then with a trembling hand, she pulled aside the torn cloth covering her shoulder. Ethan's breath caught. Beneath her pale skin ran lines of light, silver and blue patterns that pulsed softly. They weren't scars, they weren't wounds, they were alive. Moving like rivers of energy beneath her flesh, he reached out without thinking. His fingers stopping inches away, she didn't move. Didn't flinch, only whispered, "This is who I am." Her body shimmered faintly, the glow spreading until it wrapped her whole frame in a soft radiance. The illusion of weakness began to fade. Her posture straightened, her hair flowed like silver fire, her eyes blazing brighter than before. Ethan stumbled back, staring in awe as the fragile woman became something more, something regal. In that moment, she was no helpless stranger. She was a vision of power. "You're not just any alien," Ethan murmured, his voice breaking. She nodded slowly. "I am Leora, daughter of the House of Arvalis, rightful heir to a throne they want me to forget." Her voice trembled at the edges, but her tone carried strength. Ethan's stomach dropped, 100 thoughts crashing inside his head. He had not just saved a creature, not just a woman. He had saved a princess in exile. Leora closed her eyes, the glow fading slightly, her body swaying with exhaustion. "I used the form of an animal to hide, but the wounds tore away my disguise. It cannot protect me anymore." She looked at him again, desperation flickering in her gaze. "They will find me, and they will kill anyone who stands in their way." Ethan's chest tightened, fear clawing at him. He was just a man, a traveler with no weapons, no power, no reason to be caught in the war of alien royals. And yet when he looked at her, pale and trembling, his fear turned to something else. She had no one, no ally, no protector, except him. "I should walk away," Ethan whispered to himself, his fists trembling. But when Leora's hand reached out, clutching his sleeve weakly, her voice breaking, "Please, don't leave me." The decision burned away his hesitation. He covered her hand with his, firm and steady. "I won't," he said, his voice rough but certain. "Not while you need me." Leora's eyes softened, tears shimmering in the corners. "You don't understand what you've chosen," she whispered. Ethan gave a faint smile, though his heart was heavy. "Maybe not. But I understand this. You needed help and I was there. That's enough." The forest stirred again, a deep echo of movement. This time it was no animal, no harmless sound. Leora stiffened, her glow dimming in fear. "They're here," she whispered. Her voice shaking, Ethan rose to his feet, gripping the branch he had kept beside him. He felt ridiculous holding a stick against whatever hunted her, but it was all he had. His chest burned with fear, but his feet refused to move. He would not run. Not while she was beside him. Leora's glow brightened, faint arcs of silver light sparking from her hands. Though weak, she was preparing to fight. To stand beside him, Ethan's throat went dry, watching her power stir. She was more than a princess, more than an alien. She was a force that could shatter the world, and yet she looked at him as if he was the only shield she had. The sound of snapping branches grew closer, footsteps heavy, deliberate. Ethan's heart raced as shadows moved in the trees. He glanced at Leora, her eyes blazing with both fear and fire. Whatever was coming, it was hunting her and now him too. The night air turned sharp. The fire hissed and silence fell again. Ethan gripped his makeshift weapon tighter, whispering, "Then let them come." And by his side, the alien princess whispered back, "We will stand together." The forest was not silent anymore. Every tree seemed alive with whispers. Every gust of wind carried the echo of danger. Ethan stood firm beside the princess, his heart hammering in his chest, yet his grip steady on the crude branch in his hand. The glowing woman beside him, Leora, looked weaker than she wanted to show, her silver light flickering, her breaths uneven. The shadows in the trees moved, but then, just as suddenly, they faded back. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. It meant their enemies were close, watching, waiting for the right moment. Ethan turned to her quickly, whispering, "You have to tell me what's going on. I can't help you if I don't know the truth." Leora's eyes softened, a mix of sorrow and fear. She hesitated, as if speaking aloud might make the nightmare more real. Finally she nodded, her trembling hands clasping his arm for support. "You deserve to know. Because you are already part of this, she said quietly. They moved closer to the fire, the crackling flame giving them both a fragile sense of safety. Leora sat down, her silver hair falling like silk across her shoulders, her glowing patterns dim in the firelight. Her voice carried both dignity and grief as she began. My name is Leora Arvalis. I am the last daughter of the Arvalis line, the ruling house of my world. Ethan blinked, struggling to keep up. You're a princess, he muttered. Half in disbelief, she gave a faint smile, one that did not reach her sad eyes. Not anymore. Not in the eyes of those who stole everything from me. She drew a shaky breath, her gaze fixed on the fire as if afraid to meet his eyes. My people. They turned against me, not all, but enough. A council of traitors branded me unfit. They wanted power, and to take it, they needed me gone. Assassins were sent, I barely escaped with my life, forced to wear the shape of a beast to hide in this world. Her words hung heavy in the cold night air. Ethan's chest tightened, anger rising inside him. You mean they would kill their own princess, their own blood? Leora nodded slowly, tears shimmering in her eyes. To them I am no longer blood. I am only a threat to their new rule if I live. Their lies cannot stand. Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. He had saved her thinking she was a creature in need, then a mysterious stranger. But now, he realized he had stumbled into the heart of a galactic betrayal. A hunted heir, a broken throne, and enemies powerful enough to track her across worlds. She turned toward him, her glowing eyes full of both fear and hope. Do you understand now why I said you should not have helped me? Because anyone who stands with me dies with me. Her words cut deep. But Ethan did not flinch. He stared at her for a long moment, his mind screaming at him to walk away, to let her fate be her own, and yet his heart refused. He thought of her cries in the dark, of her fragile voice asking him not to leave, of her hand gripping his sleeve with desperate trust. Finally he spoke, his voice low but steady. Then let them come for me too, I won't turn my back on you. Leora's lips trembled, her eyes filling with tears. You don't understand, Ethan. They are not just men with blades, they have ships, weapons, armies. They will burn whole worlds to find me. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he did not look away. Maybe so. But right now they don't have me, and I won't let them take you. For a moment, silence fell between them again. But this time it wasn't heavy with fear. It was heavy with something else. Trust. Leora's hand brushed against his, her silver light warming his skin. You are...
Strange, she whispered softly, almost to herself. A human.
Yet braver than most warriors I have known. Ethan chuckled faintly, though his heart was still racing. Maybe I'm just too stubborn to run, he said. She smiled, a fragile smile, but one that carried hope. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A bond neither could deny. The forest stirred again, louder this time. A faint metallic sound echoed through the trees. The unmistakable hum of alien technology. Leora's face paled, her glow dimming with dread. They found us, she whispered. Her voice breaking, Ethan rose to his feet, his grip tightening on the branch, though he knew it was laughable against such enemies. Still, he stood tall, placing himself between her and the shadows. Then they'll have to get through me first, he muttered. Leora's hand touched his shoulder, her voice soft but strong. If they do, you will die. Ethan! He glanced back at her, a faint smile on his lips. Then I'll die doing the only thing that felt right. The fire sputtered. The night deepened, and the first faint glow of approaching hunters lit the trees. Ethan's heart thundered, his fear very real, but behind him, he felt the warmth of the alien princess, her trust resting on his shoulders, and somehow, that made him stronger than he had ever been. The forest no longer felt alive with whispers. Now it roared with danger. Shadows moved with purpose. Heavy footsteps pressed into the soil, and the faint hum of strange weapons filled the air. Ethan's breath came sharp, his heart pounding, yet he stood firm, the crude branch in his hand trembling slightly. Beside him, Leora's glow flickered, her energy weak but her eyes sharp with fear. They are close, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan swallowed hard, scanning the dark trees. He could see faint glimmers of light, red dots flickering between branches, like predators' eyes, but these were not beasts. They were men hunting with alien machines. Stay low, Ethan whispered, pushing her gently toward the fallen log near the fire. She crouched, wrapping his cloak tighter around herself. Though her glowing pattern still faintly betrayed her position, Ethan cursed under his breath, dragging ash from the fire and smearing it across her skin to dim the shine. She stared at him wide-eyed. "Why are you—" "Because I'm not letting them see you first," he cut her off, his tone sharp but steady. A sudden sound cracked through the air. A metallic voice shouted in a language Ethan didn't understand, followed by the snap of a branch breaking under heavy boots. Ethan's body stiffened. He raised his branch higher, though he knew it was useless against blasters. But still, he refused to back down. 3 figures emerged from the trees, tall, armored, their helmets glowing faint red. Each carried a long weapon that pulsed faintly with energy. Their movements were precise, too controlled to be ordinary soldiers. Leora sucked in a breath, whispering, "The Black Hunters," her voice trembling. Ethan glanced at her quickly. "What are they?" Her lips trembled. "Elite killers? Trained to hunt only one kind of prey. Me." The hunters spread out, circling, their red eyes scanning the clearing. One of them raised a small device, which chirped faintly. Ethan realized with dread they had some way of tracking her energy. He stepped forward instinctively, his body shielding Leora from their view. The nearest hunter tilted his head, as if surprised to see a human standing there. "Step aside," the metallic voice ordered in broken English. Ethan's throat went dry, but he shook his head slowly. "She's not yours," he said, voice low but firm. The hunters paused, their helmets flickering faint light as though communicating silently. Then, almost in unison, 2 of them lifted their weapons. The glowing barrels pointed directly at Ethan. Leora cried out softly, "No!" But Ethan raised his branch higher, his body trembling yet rooted in place. "If you want her," he said through clenched teeth, "you'll have to go through me first." The hunters laughed, a chilling, mechanical sound. One of them stepped closer, towering over Ethan, his weapon humming with deadly power. But before he could strike, the ground beneath them trembled with sudden force. A surge of silver light erupted from behind Ethan. Leora had raised her hand, faint sparks of energy lashing into the air. The hunters staggered, their scanners flickering wildly. "Move," Ethan shouted, grabbing her arm, pulling her through the trees. The forest exploded into chaos. The hunters fired, red bolts of energy tearing through bark and branches. The fire pit shattered behind them, sparks flying high into the night. Ethan ran harder than he ever had before, the princess stumbling beside him. The ground shook with each blast that struck too close, trees splitting, the smell of burning wood choking the air. His lungs screamed, but he didn't stop, his hand gripping Leora's tightly, dragging her forward. "Keep running," he barked, his voice hoarse. The hunters followed, their heavy steps crushing leaves, their glowing eyes never losing focus. One bolt struck close, sending Ethan tumbling into the dirt. Pain tore through his arm. The branch flying from his hand, Leora fell with him, her glow flaring bright in panic. "No!" she cried, trying to cover him, her body trembling with both fear and power. Ethan pushed himself up, teeth clenched against the pain. He grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it with all his strength. It struck one hunter's helmet, making the giant stumble back a step. Pathetic compared to their weapons, yet it bought them seconds. "Move," Ethan shouted again, dragging her deeper into the trees. Branches tore at their skin, the night alive with red lights chasing them. Ethan's chest burned, his muscles screamed, but he refused to let go of her hand. Every step felt heavier, every breath a battle. But the thought of leaving her behind never crossed his mind. Finally, they stumbled into a rocky clearing, a shallow cave hidden under moss and stone. Ethan shoved her inside, pressing himself against the entrance. Gasping for air, Leora trembled, her glow faint, tears running down her face. "You'll die for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Ethan turned, his face streaked with sweat and dirt, his eyes fierce. "Then I'll die knowing I tried," he said. The hunters' footsteps echoed closer, the hum of their weapons filling the air. Inside the cave, silence pressed tight. Ethan gripping a stone in one hand, his battered body ready to fight. Beside him, Leora closed her eyes, silver light building faintly in her palms. 2 souls cornered, yet neither willing to give up. The night had become a battlefield, and Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The cave was dark, silent except for the ragged sound of their breathing. Ethan pressed his back against the cold stone wall, every muscle in his body aching, his arm still throbbing where the energy blast had grazed him. Beside him, Leora sat hunched, her silver glow faint and unsteady, her hands trembling as she tried to control the flickers of light that escaped her skin. For a long while, neither spoke, both listening to the sounds outside. The hunter's footsteps had passed, their heavy boots fading into the distance, but the memory of their glowing eyes lingered in Ethan's mind. He wiped the sweat and dirt from his forehead, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. Finally, he whispered, his voice hoarse. We bought ourselves some time, but they'll be back. Leora nodded slowly. Her gaze fixed on the ground, her voice shook as she replied. They won't stop, Ethan, they never stop. Not until I'm dead. Her words struck him harder than the chase, the raw hopelessness in her tone cutting deep. He turned to her, frustration and determination burning inside him. Then we make them stop, he said, his voice sharp. We don't just run forever. We fight back. Leora looked at him, her glowing eyes wet with tears. You don't understand what you're saying. They're not men you can fight with sticks and stones. They're killers trained since birth, armed with weapons your world has never seen. Ethan leaned closer. His expression fierce, maybe, but I've seen killers before. And I know one thing. Courage is something you can't train. You either have it or you don't, and right now, they don't scare me half as much as the thought of leaving you behind. Her breath caught, her lips parting as if she wanted to argue, but the words died on her tongue. For the first time, she saw not just a human standing in front of her, but someone who carried the weight of his choice with no regret. Her tears slipped down her cheeks, shimmering faintly in the glow of her skin. You're a fool, she whispered, her voice breaking. A brave fool, Ethan gave a faint smile. His face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes steady. Maybe, but I'd rather be a fool who stood beside you than a coward who ran. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't heavy with fear. It was filled with something unspoken, a fragile bond forming between them. Leora slowly reached out, her hand trembling. Resting gently on his injured arm, a soft light spread from her touch. Silver warmth seeping into his skin, Ethan flinched at first, then blinked in surprise as the pain faded. The burn of the wound cooling under her healing glow. Her voice was soft, almost like a prayer. You risked yourself for me. I cannot let you suffer for it, Ethan stared at her amazed. The wound that had burned with agony only moments ago was closing, leaving nothing but faint scars. He shook his head, whispering, You're incredible. Leora's eyes softened, her glow fading as she pulled her hand back. Exhaustion clear on her face. I am only alive because of you, she murmured. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Ethan leaned back against the stone, his breath steady now. You don't owe me anything, Leora. I didn't save you because I wanted something in return. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Her gaze lingered on him. Long and searching, in his voice she heard no lies. No hidden motive, just simple truth. And for someone who had lived her whole life surrounded by betrayal, that truth struck deeper than any weapon. For the first time, she smiled. Not a forced smile, not a sad one, but a real, fragile smile. You are different. Ethan, she whispered. On my world, power is everything. People only help if it benefits them, but you gave me your trust without asking who I was. Ethan shrugged lightly, though his eyes glowed with quiet pride. Maybe that's just what being human means. The sound of the wind outside carried through the cave, but it felt softer now, less threatening for a moment. The cave was no longer a prison, but a shelter. Ethan stretched his legs, exhaustion pulling at his body. Yet he refused to close his eyes. Instead, he whispered, Rest. I'll keep watch. Leora looked at him, her expression tender. You've already done enough. You need rest too. Ethan shook his head, his jaw set. If they come back, you'll need me awake. I can't let them take you. Something shifted in her chest at those words. For the first time since her exile, she felt safe. Not because of her power, not because of her title, but because of the man sitting beside her. She lowered her head, whispering softly, Then I will trust you, Ethan, with my life. Her words lingered in the air. Heavier than any vow, Ethan felt his throat tighten, but he gave a small nod. Then I'll protect it, he promised. His voice quiet but fierce. The fire in his chest burned brighter than the fear outside. The hunters were still out there. The danger was far from over. But inside that cave, for the first time, trust bound a human and an alien princess together. And that bond was stronger than any weapon, stronger than any army. It was a promise written in the silence of the night, a promise neither of them would ever break. The night dragged heavy, the silence in the cave too fragile to last. Ethan sat with his back against the stone, eyes sharp, every muscle tensed, waiting for the moment he knew would come. Leora lay beside him, her glow dim and soft, like the last light of a fading star, her body trembling with exhaustion. For a while, Ethan allowed her to rest, but his ears caught every shift of wind, every crack of branches outside, and then the silence broke. A low hum carried through the trees, steady and cold. Red lights appeared at the cave's mouth. Glowing eyes of the hunters closing in, Ethan rose slowly, gripping a jagged stone in one hand, his jaw set, his chest burning with fear. "They've found us," he whispered. Leora's eyes snapped open, silver sparks flashing faintly across her skin. Her voice cracked. "We can't fight them, Ethan." "Not like this." Ethan shook his head, his voice steady though his hands trembled. "Maybe not, but we're not running anymore." The first hunter stepped inside, tall and armored, weapon humming with deadly power. Behind him, two more shadows filled the entrance, their red lights glowing against the cave walls. The narrow tunnel left Ethan and Leora cornered. No path to escape, only one choice: to stand. The hunter's voice was sharp and mechanical. "Give her up, human, step aside, and we will spare you." Ethan's blood boiled at the words. He stepped forward, his voice echoing in the cave. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunter tilted his head, as if amused. "So be it." The weapon lifted, glowing brighter, ready to fire, but before it could release, a sudden flash filled the cave. Leora stood, her hands raised, silver light blazing from her skin. Her weak body shook, but her power surged, forming a wall of light between them and the hunters. The blast struck the barrier, exploding in sparks, the cave trembling, stones falling from above. Ethan shielded her instinctively, his body pressing against hers, her voice strained. "I can't hold it for long." Ethan's heart raced, his mind screaming for a solution. He spotted a crack in the cave wall, the stone weakened by the blast. If he could bring it down, the entrance would collapse, trapping the hunters outside or trapping all of them inside. His jaw clenched. "Leora," he whispered, "if I bring that wall down, it'll buy us time." Her eyes widened in horror. "You'll be buried too." Ethan gave her a faint, weary smile. "Better me than you. Your life means more than mine." Her glow flared, her voice breaking. "No! Don't you dare say that. You're the reason I'm alive." "I can't lose you now," but Ethan had already moved. Grabbing a fallen piece of metal from the ground, he hurled it with all his strength against the cracked stone. The wall groaned, shaking violently. Dust falling in thick clouds, the hunters advanced, firing again. The blasts rattling the cave, Ethan threw himself forward, striking the stone again, his arm screaming with pain. Finally, the crack split wide, a thunderous roar filling the cave. The entrance collapsed in an avalanche of rock and dust, burying the hunters in a wall of stone. The air filled with choking dirt, Ethan coughing, his body slamming against the ground. Leora rushed to him, pulling at his shoulders, her voice raw. "Ethan! Ethan, stay with me." He groaned, his vision blurry, his chest heavy, but he forced a smile through the pain. "They won't follow us now," he whispered. Leora's tears fell onto his skin, her glowing hands pressing against his chest, trying to heal him. But her voice shook. "I can't fix all of this, not without rest." "You've given everything for me." Ethan reached up weakly, his fingers brushing her cheek. "I told you I wouldn't leave you," he murmured. Her heart clenched at his words, her tears shimmering silver in the faint glow of her skin. Outside, the forest grew silent again, the hunters buried. Their pursuit ended, at least for now. The cave was dark, but in the center of it, two figures clung to each other. A human who had no reason to fight, and a princess who had no one left to trust. Bound by choices, by courage, by something stronger than fear, Leora whispered into the quiet, her voice trembling but filled with new strength. "You've changed everything, Ethan. You've given me more than my life back. You've given me hope." He closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling him down. But before sleep claimed him, he whispered back, "Then make it count, princess, make it mean something." She held him close, her silver light wrapping them both. For the first time since her exile, she was not alone. And for the first time in his simple life, Ethan had become more than just a man. He had become a shield, a savior, a story that would echo far beyond the forest. The hunters had come with weapons and power, but in the end, it was the heart of one human that stood unbroken.